Hello, everyone. It's been a while, and if you're wondering what I've been working on, it's this. I spent the better part of 6 or 7 months working on my entry for the Gunpla Builders World Cup last year, and this was my entry. And I told myself that once I had done this, I do a walkthrough and talk about the techniques I've used and some of the interesting qualities about it, just so that we can share it with the community and sort of light a fire under my ass for this year to do something different. Since everyone would know how I did this, I had to figure out something new to do. And so this is what you see here. Just right off the bat, my entire goal was to be a spectacle. So I went with lights. I love electronics, I love LEDs, and that's something that I did, but I did it in three different ways. You may have seen the LED filaments that I did in an earlier project. You may have seen the explosion effects that I've done in an earlier project, but that backlighting is new and entirely experimental. And I can actually show you what that looks like on the back. I actually have a bank of very bright, warm white LEDs shining through a semi-translucent acrylic sheet. This acrylic sheet was bent. Funny story, I don't have a bending tool for acrylic, so I put it in my oven and basically trial and errored it until it worked. And so you can see that I've got this very interesting effect where, because I stuck balls of cotton against the back of the sheet, and then I airbrushed a gradient from basically completely frosted acrylic to a dark blue gray. With the light, it actually gives a fairly interesting effect where the clouds are actually illuminated, and I can actually control the lighting somewhat, have a sunset and sunrise on the back, and sort of adjust it for the conditions, um, basically to suit the conditions, lighting conditions. So I had it really close because it was a daytime event, and so I had the light really close so it will light up a little bit brighter. The competition actually was last year in the middle of the at the end of last year, and I did not have much of a chance to do a lot of refinements. But since then, excuse the noise. So the competition was at the end of last year, and I didn't have much time to make improvements in order to transport this. But fortunately, I was invited to showcase this at the Shizuoka Hobby Show last month. And last month, I realized I had to transport it on a hand carry, and so I needed to make this fit within those hand carry dimensions. So I made one change to it that helped me do that. And that is to magnetize the beam saber hand. And so you can see, I'm going to turn on the lights now. You can see the beam saber hand has a magnet that connects to the forearm like so, which closes the circuit and then gives me my beam saber effect. So that's what I did so that I could remove that and then box it up within the dimensions of hand carry, because there was no way I was going to check this in. If I had checked it in, it would have come out in pieces on the other end. So that's what I did. Another thing notable was that I spent a lot of time on the diorama. So first of all, background. This is basically episode 1, kill number 1 of the 0079 anime, where the Gundam, the first Gundam, cuts a Zaku in half. And so I depicted that. And interestingly, actually, this concept was suggested to me by a senpai of mine. And he decided that because I could do the beam saber effects and all that, he said, hey, why don't you do this for GBWC and you do that, the iconic, very brand brand friendly pose. So that's what I did, and it came out pretty cool. So that was the plan. And what I did was I spent a lot of time using railway scale materials and terrain to build up the terrain, the background here. So I'm going to give you a closer look. So as you can see, I've done, these are woodland scenics. A lot of this is woodland scenics, and a lot of this is AK a modeling scenery. And so you sort of achieve this very interesting realistic scale modeling kind of style mixed with a very dramatic anime look. The type of painting that I did was a lot of pre-shading modulation on the Gundam itself with lacquer paints, and then I went in and did hand painting of all the chipped effects. And this is very apparent on the backpack. As you can see, there are a lot of hand-drawn chips and hand-drawn scratches, and very apparent on the legs as well. This was literally a fresh off the production line Gundam, and I didn't want to do, you know, big scorch marks and all that. So along the top you can see in the arms and the shoulders there's minimal weathering and minimal chipping, and as you go down you see more and more, and then close to the feet. Basically his first battle, basically Amuro's first battle. So that's what I did. But let's talk about the parts I've used. Now, I'm quite sure that if you're familiar with it, you'll have noticed the Master Grade version 3.0. There was a choice here that I could use the Master Grade Origin Gundam. And the Origin Gundam, because it lacks the core fighter, is a lot more flexible, a lot more versatile, and actually easier to achieve this type of pose. Eventually I decided to use, because of screen accuracy, the version 3.0, because the Origin has slightly different shoulders and slightly different shapes. So I went with accuracy instead, as much as I could. I didn't use the magnetic coating servos. You can see the servos on the Gundam are the original servos. The 3.0 gives you two options. Either you do the magnet coating servo or the original off the production line servo. So this is first generation. Second of all, you can see that foreshortened Zaku in the background. So I wanted it to be a lot smaller than the Gundam. And aside from doing it with the Gundam Artifact, which is very small, but the Zaku wasn't out at that point in time yet. So instead, I could have gone with the high grade, which is 1 to 1/44 scale, but that would mean that it would be, you know, about that big and cover up most of my background. So instead, I went with this. This is the G-frame Zaku. Basically, this is a candy toy, and I just painted it up generally in Zaku greens and did an airbrushed of fluorescent orange around the inside. Lights. So I did fluorescent orange around the inside. I detailed the ripped open respirator front, and did a bit of a shine on the lens, and then just generally just a very simple paint job. Knowing that I would not be graded on this part of the kit, of the presentation, I didn't want to spend too much time on this. I just spent time on the overall drama and look instead. So inside there are 3 LEDs, and those are the flicker LEDs that you have on sort of deco candles. They sort of flicker like fire, so that's the effect that you have. The light is channeled outward to the tips of the explosion, like so, using optic fiber of various thicknesses. There are some thin ones and there's some thick ones, and I glued basically makeup remover cotton pad material all over this. And the reason I use makeup remover cotton pad is because it is very fine and much more easy to pull off sort of a more realistic, more scale realistic explosion. So that's what I did here. Kitty wants to come in. You want to come in? Apologies. Cat had to decide whether or not to come into the room. Okay, so back to this. Version 3.0 master grade, G-frame Zaku, just simply painted. And then that's a LED filament. And to give you a closer look of what these filaments look like, you can buy them on AliExpress, and this is what they look like. They come in various lengths. Turning up the brightness again. These come in various lengths, as you can see. I'm going to move that away. Bring my light out here. So here's a short one, here's a long one, and they run 3 volts. So they have an indicator on one end. There are contacts on both ends. They make contacts on one side now, both male and female positive, negative contacts on one side now. But the ones I used for this were the two-ended kind. So if you look closely, on one of the ends, there is a very small pinhole, and that pinhole is the positive pole. And if you hook it up to a 3 volt, it lights up really nicely. And they come in a couple of colors, warm white, they come in blue, green, pink, and the pink is really, really intense, which is why I picked it, and suitably so. So how I did that was I used enamel coated copper wire, and enamel coated copper wire is very, very thin, and it basically allowed me to run an almost invisible wire to the other terminal on the tip. And then what I did is I got myself, so far I've only seen Tamiya make these, and these are cylinders of clear polycarbonate. So that's what it looks like. That's the item number if you ever want to use it. And these are 3mm polycarbonate tubes, and it gives me just enough room to slide this noodle and one copper wire up to the end. These are difficult to cut. I had to use a rotary tool to cut these, because if you try to crimp them off with wire cutters or nippers, they'll crack all along the length even. So just a word of warning, if you are going to build beam sabers with the noodly LEDs and these, either get a rotary tool or be very careful, get a small micro saw and saw these. Do not cut them. So that's what I did. Now secondly, on the inside of the head, you'll see that the eyes and the head camera light up. Now, surprisingly enough, all 3 lights are just one light. The version 3.0 has a clear eye and camera set inside the head. What I did was I tinted the camera red and I tinted the eyes yellow with water-based acrylic paint, clear paint. And then what I did was I got one of these. Now these are called LITZ LEDs, L-I-T-Z. Some people call them Pico LEDs. They are just very, very small LEDs. They come pre-soldered with your red and black already. And with one of these, I was able to illuminate both eyes and the head camera. And you can see they run off 3 volt as well. So I could actually just basically use the same circuit for all of this. I used a warm white. I used a warm white for the head. And that's about it. That's all the electronics. But let's look under the hood, because that's the part that really matters. And if you come around to the back, oh, that bank of LEDs, this is actually just a USB lamp, the kind that you stick into the side of your laptop. They run 3 volts as well. So that's easy. But let's have a look inside. So, prepare to be disgusted. So there is a jungle of wire inside. This is attached with magnets. And I do have quite a jungle of wire inside. What I did was I wired up. Oh, long story about this. When I had to take this to Shizuoka, I actually forgot the USB lead, right? And I had to use my Nintendo DS charging cable because I had an optional cable that allowed me to charge with USB. I had to use my Nintendo DS charging cable and sort of jerry-rig it to this. And so you find that it's quite interesting to see a DS charging port in here, but that's not important. Anyway, I wired 3 switches. So one switch switches off the Zaku explosion, the middle switch switches off the skylight, and the front switch switches off the beam saber. And so that's what I did here. The wires, I wish I had the bandwidth to sort of sort that out a little bit earlier. I wouldn't have made it this messy, but it's generally quite simple. I have a cavity here for a battery pack, and I can stick sort of a bank of 8 AA batteries in there instead of this. So I have the option of unplugging this and doing it with 8 AAs, and that runs 3 volts. I run 4 pairs of AA in parallel to get your 3 volts, and basically enough current to run everything. All the LEDs that I have are self-regulating, so I don't have to worry about sort of a current burning everything. And that's how I did this. I ran the leads of the battery in here into this jungle, and I forked them out to 3 sections that were controlled individually here. And that's basically what's underneath. This thing are basically just wooden boxes for stationery that I got from Daiso. That's sort of a thrift store, a dollar store. So a lot of this is dollar store stuff. This cladding was from 30-minute missions. It's 30-minute missions display base with a hanger walls. This is pla plate. This is polystyrene plate. Woodland Scenics or some kind of railroad modeling plate. Corners are also railroad modeling plate. And yes, all that is basically it. What happened was that I was fortunate enough to take the silver in my local competition for this, and I went on with the Southeast Asian delegation onto Shizuoka to showcase this at the model show. And it was a great experience, actually. It wasn't a competition. It was more of sort of a sharing gathering with modeling clubs from all over the world, mostly from Japan, a few from Asia. And it was a really, really great time. I might post some pictures of it on my Facebook page, but I've been so listless and sort of in a rut ever since I came back from Shizuoka. And then I had to work on a different competition that's in Malaysia, which I'm actually leaving for in a couple days. So yeah, you know how it is sometimes. You go back and forth and then you sort of walk around the house in a daze not knowing what you're actually doing. But thankfully this is done. The Malaysia one is done. And the next one would be this year, 2024's GBWC. They just announced the closing date, and I've got about 3 months to work on that one. And if the foreshadowing wasn't clear enough, it's gonna be Zaku. It will not be Shah's Zaku. It will not be green or red, but it will be a perfect grade. So look forward to that. In the meantime, if you have questions about this little thing, and if you have any other questions regarding, what Shizuoka was like, things about the hobby, or questions about any of the other builds that I've done on this channel, let me know. I'm very, very happy to share, and I hope all of you have a very, very great day. Take care. Bye bye.